God bless Jai Alai, Ethan.
God bless Jai Alai.
God bless Jai Alai, J.R.
God bless Highlight Nate.
Ladies and gentlemen, season 9, it is upon us, and I have a special treat for all those pelota heads out there. We are joined by Ethan Weiss and J.R. Shuman, two gentlemen that I have gotten to know through doing this podcast and just interacting with other battle court aficionados. And I've invited them on to share some of the things that they're doing with stats and battle court, and also just to break down season 9. So let's get into it. First question, Ethan, I'm going to throw it to you first. If you could just share, like, what do you do? How'd you get involved with Jai Alai? What are you doing with stats and numbers around battle court?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Nate. As you mentioned, I'm Ethan Weiss. I'm the founder of Robote Analytics and good friend of Andrew Bleckman. That's how I got, introduced to the game of Jai Alai. I track player and team level stats for the World Jai Alai League. So that's how I'm involved with the stats. So stats you hear from Andrew on the broadcast and see on the highlightworld.com site. Those are what my company produces.
Awesome. And what are some of the things that people can expect this season that you're going to try to be doing with like stats on, like you've started like a newsletter that you're putting out?
Yeah. So the newsletter is called the Battle Court Briefing. If you Google it, it's a Beehive newsletter that might help you kind of find it. But if you're interested, subscribe to that. Just, player profiles. I'll do some match previews and breakdowns. Leading into the season, I published front quarter and back quarter tier lists. Using the stats to break down some of these matches in a way that's never been done for Battle Court before. So that's the goal of the Battle Court Briefing. So if you're a Jai Alai fan, especially for Battle Court, you should definitely go give it a subscribe and a read.
Absolutely. I've even heard that you're so good at betting Battle Court that you've been limited on certain apps.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
JR, why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about how you got involved in Jai Alai and some of the things you're doing with numbers?
Yeah. So again, Nate, thank you very much for having me on, man. I really appreciate the opportunity. I wish I could say that I worked with Battlecourt in some official capacity. I don't. I guess you could probably call me a super fan, and I'm actually really, really new to Jai Alai as a sport. Like I've been watching Battlecourt for like less than a year. To make a long story short, it helped me through like a really, really difficult time in my life. The algorithms did their job and showed me Battle Court while it was, while they're doing while they're having a match, and got hooked immediately. Just of the ability of the athletes and the high speed of the action and stuff. It just hooked me. The teams, everything. So I would probably consider myself like a super fan at this point, although, maybe not. Either way.
You're a super fan. I mean, come on. You have Google Docs. You have Google Docs of statistics. He's selling himself short right now. You're 100% a super fan. I can also confirm, just knowing that Ethan is West Coast has made me question something that I often say on this podcast, that I'm the greatest pelota knower west of the Mississippi. I'm going to say I don't think that's true anymore. You might not hear me say that anymore. I don't think I can say that. And JR, I can say with confidence, you're 100% a super fan of this thing. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing with match grades.
Absolutely, yeah. So my system that I created all on my own was match grade. It's called match grades. There's a little subsection of that called set grades. We won't go into the math if you don't want to. But long story short, when I was learning about Jai Alai and what it is and how it's played, I desperately, being like an American sports fan, wanted to know, like, okay, well, what stats are involved? Are there something similar to like home runs or touchdowns or, receptions? What are we talking about? And I was trying to find as much stuff as I could, but it was really what I was seeing was just kind of limited to wins and losses. And I was like, okay, that's a good starting place, but like, how are the players themselves playing? What is there anything that could show me that? And from the searching that I was doing, I wasn't finding anything. Um, and so I just took it upon myself to make up my own system.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for it to work, I watch and I uh, track the games as they're going along, and I almost treat it as if like the old school baseball scorecards. It's actually an old pastime that I used
Yeah.
to dabble back in when you could afford baseball tickets and stuff. I kind of treat it in that same way. I get my laptop up and I'm punching what I see into the screen as we're playing, as they're playing, and there's a bunch of formulas involved, but eventually it comes out to basically a combination of, let's call it like an ERA and a batting average in baseball, but for
Mm-hmm.
highlight, um, it the match grade, if I was put it to like one sentence, describes how a player played in that given match. Outside of wins or losses, it's their actual performance that's being graded, and that's
Mm-hmm.
to the good side or to the bad side. It's objective. It's saying this is how you did today, and it gives us a number, and that's something tangible that you can hold on to, especially if you're a new fan like myself.
Absolutely. I've looked at it. It's been something that's interesting to me. I of course love it because Manu has one of the highest match grades. So any sort of
Yeah.
statistic that just confirms what my eyes tell me of Manu being one of the best players in Battle Court is a statistic that I'm gonna want to learn more about. So I kind of what I want to do is preview the upcoming season, and they had the draft a while back, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on the draft. Who was there something that caught your eye about the draft? Who do you thought did a good job on draft day? For me, you know me, I'm going to say Cyclones crushed it. They got those four locks. I went back and forth on who they thought should have been the fourth lock. Ultimately, I agree with the choice to lock Unda instead of Stan because the floor has been raised in Division 6. As if you look at all the teams, so I think just having that Manu Iñaki Hyro, it's a devastating combination, and just those freezes alone for me, they're my big winners in the draft day, which for previous drafts, like you can see teams struggle on that later end of the draft. So I'm hoping the Cyclones can avoid that and push to repeat as champs. Ethan, what do you think about when you look at the
Nate,
draft?
I don't want to rain on your parade, your Cyclones parade here, but I think the Cyclones were one of the bigger losers in the draft. We'll get there later.
Ooh, ooh.
Let's start with the positives here.
Okay, okay.
Um, I, Look, the big bad Renegades. I think they were amazing in this draft. Okay, I
Hmm.
mean, you have the top end keeping Gaucheri. Say what you want about Goa Naga. Like I'm low on Goa Naga as a second ranked player.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you know, Amigarena, Ubia, in my opinion, are fairly similar profiles, especially when they're playing top division backcourt behind Gaucheri. I think, that doesn't make too much of a difference. But they're 4, 5, 6. They upgraded from Ben at the 4, CRB Flores, and they turned that into Arta Ben Gallo in the back half of their roster, which is really where they got hurt last year. Ben took a sharp drop off from what
Yeah.
we had seen from him as a fourth ranked player in seasons before. And now they get Ben back in the fifth division. And I think it just evens out their teams as we go forward. We have Gaucheri Arta now in the 2 for the Renegades. Um, you get Goanaga and Ben. You get Ben playing in fourth and sixth division where he'll be, at a much more advantageous position to use his power and catching ability, versus in the second division where some of these top front quarters can really start to pick on him. I think Ben's going to have a resurgent season. I think the bottom half of that Renegades team is much better than we've seen in recent years. And I think the Renegades are, I mean, going to be back in the playoffs and back competing for a championship after sort of a down year in fall 25.
All right. I mean, we'll get
We'll
there
get to the
for
Cyclones later.
Cyclones.
Yeah.
JR, what are you seeing when you look at the draft for who you thought did well?
Yeah, man. So I gotta say, my number one like win, and I also understand too that there's certain nuances behind like freezes and the amount
Hmm.
of times a player can be frozen. So I'm kind of missing out on some of that inside baseball knowledge. So I'm just going off this as if it was like a true, like genuine draft, and there was none of that going on in the background. But my team for me that again, coming back to my match grade systems, the team that won ultimately for me was in Division One with Nicholas and Arat's switching teams, and Arat's heading over to the Devils. I think with both him, with Arat's and Benny at the top, anchoring down the rest of that just absolutely loaded Devils roster, I think that like they can have a really really strong, if not like improved season upon what they already had last year. I mean, they came into the playoffs in, I think it was third place, and used all of their know-how and their skill and
Hmm.
everything and got to the championship. And given one or two outcomes, they probably would have been neck and neck with the Cyclones, I think. And so having that switch, according to my system that I've come up with, that you've got a ROTS. I'll try to give a little bit of context behind this. So there is like it numbers off of like the like basically 1 2 6, but it can also go into
Yeah.
like the negatives, but doesn't go very far. If we're talking like an average day, a good day between players, then their match grade is going to end up being like a 3, a 2.5, a 2. Won't really go below a 2. That's an average day. That's a good day. That's probably winning you games. Anything below a 2 is kind of subpar. It's not really working very well. 4 or 4.5 and above is above average, and we're like ranging on the level of like elite territory. And again, there's a lot of other math there I'm not going to go into, but what my
Hmm.
numbers are telling me is that between the two, if you compare Nicholas and Aratz, um, Aratz is the more competent and more I say competent, like I know what I'm talking about because I've only been doing this for so
Jay,
long. But
look,
anyway,
JR,
yeah,
stop selling yourself short
Yeah.
here. All right? Trust all I don't do anything with these stats, but you know what I do, JR? I trust these two eyeballs right here. And
sure.
I just go with it. So you trust
With that being
what you're
said,
seeing. Cause
okay,
I
so
understand what you're saying. A rats, when I think of a rats, I think dependable. Like if I'm a front
yeah,
quarter and I know I got a rats behind me, that's a I can trust in that the errors that he's making are gonna be few and far between.
Let me jump in here because JR, I think you're exactly right here. I mean, look, again, marginal difference here between Arat and Nicholas. I think you're splitting hairs. I think it's more stylistic in terms of who I would rather
yeah.
have with my front quarter. But Arat led battle court in total catch rate last year. He was second in forehand catch rate, first in backhand catch rate, all while being fifth in the fifth lowest out of play rate. So like, I mean, you're talking about a guy who doesn't drop it and doesn't throw it out, and it's like that's what you want from a backcourter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I mean, look, you replace Arat with Nicholas. I don't. I think you're kind of splitting hairs there, but um, I think it was an interesting. It'll be interesting to see those combinations change for the Fireballs and Devils.
Yeah, definitely. So part of the winning formula that I feel that the Cyclones were able to come up well, number one was like Nate, like you mentioned, those top
Mm-hmm.
three, Manu, Inaki, and Hyro, are just absolute
Elite.
studs at what they do. They're just so good. And like you said, looking over the notes and stuff, Manu has like the resting like his actual average match rate or match grade is a 7.8. Okay, so the bar that I had set initially was like in the fours or right there. That's getting you in like elite territory. That's really good. He is like above and beyond elite. Okay, that 7.8 is absolutely astonishing. So with him being like the bar setter, I guess is as it were, according to my numbers, Aratz is right up there with a 6.0. Okay. And like that is not nothing to balk at. Like he catches the ball. He's making minimal errors. He's on the rare occasion he'll throw out a backhand two wall and score a couple of points here and there. But and he also can hold his own in singles. I think it was a down year for him last year, but he is actually very competent in that range, and very much more so as a backcourter. So with him being that main anchor at the very top of the Devils sheet, the Devils team, Benny is also right there behind him too. So what they're kind of doing is kind of attempting to replicate that core backcourter system that the Chargers kind of ran over the league with last year. That consistency of having that dependable defense behind you and letting the front quarters do their thing. I mean, Benetrix, are you kidding me? Benetrix and Benny again was already fantastic, but I believe is it Benetrix and Rotz are together this year? I'm
they
just
are.
checking.
They're
Oh my
Benetrix
gosh.
and Aratz are a team. So I have some thoughts on that. We'll talk about, because not only is it just draft, like the teams have a lot of flexibility, and sometimes I think teams have had good drafts, but then poor roster construction with how they've put up the teams, or maybe just like some teams just haven't come together. But as you look at the draft, I like, okay, Ethan, why are the clones? You're about to go your first time on this podcast and you're gonna go against Clone Cartel. What?
Look, I call it how I see it. But look, Manu, Iñaki, and Jairo rose to a new level that we had not seen from those three in multiple seasons of Battle Court. And they were the best team, and the best team won last year. I do not think that they got better. And that's the biggest problem. My biggest problem is not keeping that top four. I think was a great move. The reason I'm really nervous is because their 5-6 went from Bueno, Stan to Bradley and Jedin, which on paper isn't a huge downgrade. But what it does is, like you just alluded to, Nate, it totally changes the makeup of their 6 doubles teams. Okay. Iñaki Manu, Jairo Manu, and 1 and 2 doubles are, exactly what you're getting. You bring back Iñaki Undo with a little bit more continuity, sure. But the biggest advantage for the Cyclones last year was Jairo and Stan.
Yeah.
They were the best team maybe in Battle Court. Now that sort of pairing, Jairo Bradley, is playing in 4th division instead of 5th division. And that's a huge difference when you start to talk about the other players that Jairo is going to have to face in that division. And then you go that 5th team, you went from Bueno and Unda to Jedin and Unda. And Jedin and Unda are now playing 5th division. So they've got worse in 4th division and worse in 5th division. And then 6th division, Jedin Bradley is a pretty solid duo. I don't know that it's all that much better than Bueno and Stan. I mean, they played one match, but Robin and Stan held that division down last year. They finished sort of 500, pretty similar to where Jedin and Bradley finished last year. So I'm, not too concerned with the 6th team, but I think they got a lot worse in the 4th and 5th division. And that 5th division with Jairo dominating was a big reason that the Cyclones were able to get the 1 seed and then ultimately win the championship.
I hear you on that. That was one of my biggest sticking points for keeping Stan, because a lot of those Division 6 players are front court players, and you can hide the deficiencies of a front quarter better, I think, in the front court than you can in the back court. At least that's what my eyeballs
It depends. So
me.
this is going to be an interesting, sort of narrative that I'll probably write about a lot throughout this season. Something to watch is the differences between the court, the fronton, how the game is played from moving from Magic City to this new arena at Highlight Miami. The Chula and the Chick Chack are going to be a lot more in play, more similar to traditional Highlight. The forehand is going to be much more advantageous, similar to more traditional Highlight. And Battlecourt has sort of separated. It's been very interesting to follow over the last few years at Magic City because of how differently the court played. You saw this with certain guys coming in and their skill set would immediately click. Guys like Hormachea a couple of years ago, Benetrix, Olharan, mainly front quarters, right? Back quarters have tended to struggle in their first season. I'll take you back to Lopez, one of the most dominant.
That's right, Lopez.
One of the most dominant.
You don't need to tell me about Lopez.
And he struggled at Magic City, and I think that those differences are going to be very interesting to watch. It's one of the reasons that I haven't mentioned the Warriors yet. I have no idea what to think of the Warriors because all of the things I just said should make Alex one of the best players in Highlight. We saw Alex be somewhat successful as a number one player a few years ago, and he's probably right where he belongs as a number two player. But now all of a sudden, Alex, one of the highest forehand rates in the league, that starts to favor him a little bit more. I think it's going to be an interesting narrative to see, Nate, like you were originally talking about here, of like, can you hide a guy? Because at Magic City, the rebote was pretty predictable. It would come out often. Now, protecting that Chula is going to be of the utmost importance for a backcourter. I think it could put a lot of extra pressure on these lower ranked backcourters.
That's a good point. JR, what are you seeing for moves that you maybe didn't like in the draft?
So I think that my the one move that I didn't like, I think again coming from a statistics level, you asked a question in a video a few weeks back about the Great Freeze. Who would you have between Unda and Stan? And I was like, that's a great question. Let's find out. Let's test my system to see what's going to tell me, like, who would you do in this situation? So I ended up coming up with, long story short, they absolutely should have kept Stan. They 100% should have kept Stan. Now that does not go against anything of like Unda's like character or anything. I also understand like he has, such personality too. He's like, Unda is like vibes, man. He's the Undertaker, like that is, I like to imagine that's at least a little quantifiable and understandable when you're coming from the Cyclone side of like, he's going to be a backcourter for us. And he's still trying to figure out what we're doing at Magic City and getting used to the court. And it actually will kind of be an inverse in the opposite direction now back at Highlight Miami. That'll be fun to see how he and like Etcheberry and everybody else adapts to it, but certainly going back and forth. I digress. Unda's going to try to be, I hope that he's going to try to be more of that traditional backcourter style. I feel like it almost read to me as if he wanted to like make a name for himself or try to prove something at certain points. And I think that came back to bite him more often than not. He has the ability, and he showed like his game and everything improving as the season went on. And he still had moments of, spontaneity about him, always throwing as hard as he can, trying to put a hole in that wall, trying to break that glass. And you want something like that on your team. He's got to cut down on the misses. He's got to cut down on the errors. Like that it kind of goes without saying, like if he's going to take a shot from the backcourt, he's got to make that shot. Like it's you're back there to try to do your job as the backcourter. And if you feel truly that it's there, go for that shot. But outside of that, like work on your game, man. Work on your game. And I feel like some of that might have been missed in the draft. Stan, to Ethan's point, Stan and Hyro were just phenomenal last year. Absolutely phenomenal. And Stan had one of, like, I think the second best match grade average in my system outside of Correa in Division 6. Like Correa in my books was the best one in Division 6, and Stan was right behind him at number 2. And that's probably a division win, with him in the background with those two teams 8 times out of 10. And that's you're trying to get wins anywhere you can. Never mind your top 3. You want to make sure the whole roster is as strong as it can be. So I feel like that was like an opportunity to miss. I know like giving up Unda would be like devastating, which is make sense to me why they wouldn't do it. But just from a sheer numbers place, I would have probably stuck with Stan.
Did I just
Stan had a good season. I think his numbers were extremely inflated from that fifth division pairing with Hyro. Um,
yeah.
he's a 91.5% catch rate. Like it's bottom rung. I mean, that's right where Undo was for the whole season, but the second half of last season, Undo was at 92.7, which, shows you how much that was actually an improvement or how bad he was the first half of the season, that he was able to maintain that level in the second half. So I think it'll be interesting. Again, my issue with the Cyclones draft was more so based around the pairings.
I could hear that, but did I just hear both guests criticize Clone Cartel that I brought on as their people? You know who I didn't like in the draft? Ethan's not gonna like this. I didn't like the Renegades. I looked at that. I was like, you got the number 2 draft pick, and it just felt like normally this year I look at the draft and it just tells me like it's different in terms of Battle Court. Normally I can look at like the number 1 and the number 2, and I feel like those teams, man, I see a big time noticeable difference. And maybe that's there for the Chargers because they have the new player Eggy, who he's like a unknown. He could end up being a huge advantage if he's a very skilled player in Division 6. So that's an unknown. Maybe they did improve, but I look at the Chargers and Renegades and I feel like they just swapped a lot of players. And UD, as the owner, he's loyal to a fault. He's stuck with Ben. I don't really like Ben. The Ben and Go Cherry pairing has been a long time pairing that's been carried by Go Cherry, and it kind of fell off a cliff this season. And they still stuck with Ben, and now he is going to be playing in like a lower division, but now it's kind of like they're rolling out Goanaga and Ben and just hoping like being in that lower division is going to benefit him. And also, I look at Go Cherry and Arta. I do not fear that Division 2 team when I look at it. I feel like this is why, again, I just stick to the Cyclones having the best team setup out of anybody, with Manu being elite. I think having your number 1, your Division 1 and Division 2 player being front and back court is a huge advantage, because I look at all the other teams like Division 1 and Division 2 teams, and like only one of those is like a team where I look at that and I say, that's a solid team. I look at the Cyclones, I see both of that solid, and I hear the concerns of like the drop off. I think the hope would be that the Inaki Unda team goes from just below 500 to just above 500, and that Jedin and Bradley can maintain some level of the dominance that they saw last season at Division 6, but now they're playing again in a much more competitive Division 6. So we'll see what happens there. But I look at that Renegades team and I'm like, they don't look all that different. You swapped Amiga Reina, Go Cherry, Arta. Like it doesn't, Arta's a much more dependable catch rate than Ben, but it's kind of similar to me in that, like, I mean, there's really no backcourter who's uber aggressive, at least, on the Magic City court. Like Unda is the unicorn in that sense of like, he's, in my opinion, the most aggressive backcourter in all of backcourt, but I didn't like that backcourt. And I think Go Cherry to me is the best player in all of Battle Court, but I was Goanaga, he's a good player, but I feel like having their Division 2 be the same front court with Go Cherry doesn't do it. It makes Go Cherry end up playing into his bad tendencies. Go Cherry gets too aggressive trying to make up for his partners because he's always partnered with lower partners, except back when, who did he used to have? He used to have a Rats. And then when a Rats left, I think you've seen a dip in Go Cherry's play. So I didn't like the Renegades pairing and putting together their draft. I just felt like they were swapping players, and we'll see if it's better or not. Obviously, they were right on the threshold for playoffs. I think they will make it back, but let's talk some about team construction and what we're seeing. What were some team constructions you liked or didn't like looking at the draft? If anybody has one, I got one right away that I saw that I had strong feelings on, and it was the Devils. And it was, for me, mine was I didn't like what the Devils did. Although this is why. Here's my reasoning. Benetrix was the biggest advantage in all of Battle Court. He was a Division 4 player, but his talent far exceeded a Division 4 player. He dominated in both of his teams. Benny and Benetrix, solid team, and Rock and Benetrix, also a solid team, because Benetrix was being able to play in those lower divisions. Well, I like Rats and Benetrix as a team. I think that's a really good team. I wonder if, like, he's playing up now in these Division 2s. Like, I looked at it, I'm like, man, why not keep the Rock and Benetrix Division 5 team and keep that advantage? Now they're trusting on Benetrix as a Division 4 player. Like, the way they partnered him up with teams, like, they partnered him up like he was their Division 2 player, like, basically, which I think he is that talent and caliber. And they still created good teams, but now, like, he's playing in much higher competition where that could have been an advantage that they still could have taken advantage of, knowing, like, we can roll out Benetrix against this lower competition and just, count on him to get these easy wins. I think those teams will still be good teams, but I don't think they'll be as dominant as he was last season.
So can I give the counter to the? I was actually very I don't know if it's gonna work, but I like what the Devils did because I see it as it's a bet that might take them from losing in the championship to winning the championship, right? Like, if you just lost the championship, and it was in fairly decisive fashion, I will say, to the Cyclones. I think they won 4-1.
Yeah. It's very decisive.
You can't come back with the same pairings. But I think Etcheberry and Benetrix were both very solid front court players. So you have this team that's built around those two guys, Etcheberry probably being slightly below his rank, and Benetrix being, I think, well below his rank. Benetrix finished last season 5th in total catch rate and led all of Battle Court in total kills. So, like, the guy was dominant. Now, like you said, that was a lot to do with him being in 5th division, but his kill split was similar to guys like Iterbide, Hyro, and Yaki in terms of the percentage of kills that came from his higher division, which was 3rd division that he played with Benny. So you're keeping Benetrix and Benny together, who were one of the more dominant teams in Battle Court. They finished last season 9-3. So, that's a great team staying in 3rd. You have Etcheberry Nicholas last season. Now that turns into Etcheberry Rotten in 1st division, who was extremely competitive down the stretch. I mean, they still weren't able to pull off the upset against Iñaki Manu, but Iñaki Manu didn't really lose to anybody all year. And then you're basically making the bet that Benetrix is as good as you think he is. So moving him up to Division 2, his more aggressive style, he has a higher shot rate. He's sort of a Tasmanian devil type, I like to call it. I mean, you kind of just want to let him go crazy. It's the same way Gaucheri plays. He's not at that level, but, like, I see it the same way that Urrutia plays, the same way Alex plays, is like, give me a backcourter and then just let me run around like a crazy person. And that sort of shot making first style might favor him over Etcheberry in the 2nd division. And then you move Etcheberry into the 4th division, where you can kind of let his more selective, less aggressive style shine through a little bit more than it maybe did in 2nd division. I think it's a clear bet on the fact that Benetrix is as good and reliable as he showed last year, which I would also bet on. And if that is correct, and he is both more comfortable than Etcheberry in second division, and Etcheberry is more comfortable than he
Mm-hmm.
was in the top divisions in fourth division, able to dominate a little bit more. I think it could be a really, really interesting and dangerous Devils team this year.
Yeah, I'm very pro Devils. They're actually not my favorite team, but I'm very pro Devils. Actually, got the opportunity to meet Daryl Rock
Ah.
while I went down. I actually went down for the championship last May. It was yeah, so winter 25, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I got to meet him. So I kind of am a Devils fan, but like my numbers are telling me that the Devils are actually going to be one of, if not the best teams like out through the regular season this year. Again, mentioning, piggying back off of that same thought of just how strong, how much of a bet that they're expecting Etcheberry to increase his game. Um, he came in out of his division for, if you would take the match grade system and you would divide it up into the division system, he came last in the division, in his division, with a 2.0 match grade. And I saw and heard a lot of it from the commentating too, that it was him adjusting to the court, and he's very much like you mentioned, he's like a Tasmanian devil, running around and wanting to do his job and getting so passionate and fiery about when he's not able to score. Um, he has it within him that he wants to get better, and he did progress a little bit better as the season went on. So like understanding that they were going to bring him back and put that bet on him, and but also pairing him with somebody as solidly defensive as Aratz is, as well as is he with Benny? I can't quite remember. I'm not. Hold on, I don't have the scenes pulled up here.
Benetrix?
Etcheberry.
Etcheberry, no. Uh-uh.
Kubala. Okay, all right. So, at least with one of those pairings, he's got a really, really strong defensive player in Aratz, and Kubala on defense is actually there's no sniff at him either. Like he actually came first in his division, based off of his backcourt play alone, with the in my match grade system. So he's quietly confident and capable of doing his job. So it might be kind of a role reversal in that sense of like Benetrix was able to prey upon the lower divisions, as it were, as a front quarter. It's entirely possible that Etcheberry flips that script and does the same thing this year with Kubala. That I think that both their calibers are there. Certainly Benetrix's is for sure. Um, easily led his own division in my system. Like by a long shot. He actually could easily be in like a division 2 based off just his numbers alone. Again, going against that type of quality on day to day, that's definitely going to probably bring the number down some, but it's still, he has it within him to compete at that level, I think. And they're making that bet and going hard with it. I mentioned, as well, like I really do like Kubala down in his division. I think he's going to do continue his excellence down there in his like switch quarter role. I think I could sense his enthusiasm and his energy improving and increasing as the season went on. I think the pairings are going to work really, really well again. And then Rock, he's actually based off of all of the defensive players, of all of the players in Division 6, he came in third, which kind of speaks, I think, a little bit more towards like the bottom end of the lowest part of the match grade system. Like it tells you when you're good and also tells you when you're bad, and he tells you who was bad on a given day. But Rock was comfortably above what would be like the worst stats. Like he was quietly confident in able to hold his own, very much so. And I saw improvement from him as the season went on too, not just like on watching the game, but also in the numbers too. Like the line graph was steadily going up, as it were. And so from top to bottom, I think that they have the best put together roster this year. That's the Devils. Yeah.
We'll see. That's interesting because traditionally, again, this draft different than any other because traditionally the toughest draft position is where the Devils were. From at least my experience, that the team that drafts last gets the biggest drop off because they have one less freeze, so they have to pick up. They're gonna most likely lose a quality player and have to make something work with a lesser quality player. And teams that draft second to last tend to struggle in that position. But the quality of play has gone up. And I mean, Ethan, you mentioned some good points. I wasn't thinking about Etcheberry at all. Like, it is a bet that they're making. Can Benetrix be more comfortable in those higher positions? And can Etcheberry in those Division 4s? Like, you don't need to be a shot killer in Divisions 4, 5, and 6. You just need to keep the pelota moving and not make mistakes. And if that's something that you're doing there on a consistent basis, like Etcheberry, like he was good at that. He wasn't like, I think it was maybe halfway through the season that they mentioned like he didn't have a single kill shot. So he's not all that aggressive. I question some the Benny and Rock pairing, because to me Benny solid and dependable, but I don't see him as being aggressive. And Rock, like, he's streaky. Rock can be very dependable in the back, but he'll have some games where like he'll drop it and then all of a sudden he gets in his head and he just starts dropping and making kind of careless mistakes. Like he improved a lot like later in the season in season 8, but I think at the start of season 8 he had a pretty low catch rate that he was able to improve on. And even just from having him on the Cyclones, like there was one season where he was really dominant for us with him and Bueno, and then kind of fell off towards the end of that season. But then the next season, him and Bueno could not put it together at all. Any thought? We haven't talked much about Fireballs, Warriors, those teams, or Chargers. Fireballs, Warriors, this is what I'll say. A lot of front quarters. So many front quarters for those teams.
Yeah, the Fireballs freezing Ikeda in the 4 and then playing him. I think ultimately he's probably better suited as a backcourter, but sort of relying on him to sort of carry the middle of that bottom of that roster from that spot, I just didn't love that decision. I don't think he would have been picked up any higher than that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you have that, and then you could have got Arta. Like, I don't know. There was a lot of ways the Fireballs could have gone if they wanted Ikeda to be a backcourter. I didn't love that decision. The Warriors, like I said before, I'm very interested to see how Alex's play elevates, because if he can be this like really dominant second division player, I think that he can change the course of the Warriors season. And then I love how the Warriors upgraded the back of their roster. Cabrera, Bueno, Correa, 4, 5, 6 is really, really solid. Cabrera is a guy. I mean, they had Julian, so they were set there, but you hold on to Correa. I think Bueno is an upgrade over Gallo in the limited amount that we saw from him last year, but just on priors. The reason I just can't get behind the Warriors is Manny is just declining. He's just not the same player he was a couple years ago. I think Douglas and Manny, they were a 500 team in Division 2. Mm-hmm. I think this past season, I think they're a sitting duck in Division 1. And Manny's going to have to rely on Alex to sort of carry the load in Division 2. I like that Douglas is back in the front court full time. I think that'll favor them. Of those three, the team I'm really interested in is the Chargers. I think they also are another team that had a great draft. I think getting Julian in the 4 is really great. Also, Amigarena instead of Ubia, I think fits their style more. Ubia is, a player in the backcourt who can really dictate points with his power, but is about a percentage lower than Amigarena on catch rate. And Amigarena has one of the lowest out of play rates in the league and significantly lower than Ubia. So when you have Zuleika and Iturbide on your team, and that was who Ubia was playing behind last year, and now you have Amigarena.
Yeah.
This is a spot where I think it's actually a bigger upgrade for those front quarters than it would be just on paper from Ubia to Amigarena, just because you have two guys who are aggressive front quarters who kill the point at a high rate, oftentimes coming in, near the top. Zuleika had a down year last year, but I think that that was a underratedly big upgrade. I think Julian fits really well with this team. Also playing behind Zuleika, that's just a funky team to have to play against. And then we'll see with Eggy. I mean, it's a
Mm-hmm.
complete crapshoot. Um, but I'm very interested to see how that Chargers team performs. I like their roster this year.
Absolutely. JR, any other thoughts on teams and roster construction that was sticking out to you?
Yeah, Ethan, I would totally have to agree with you on the being up on the Chargers this year. I really, to kind of echoing back with that, like from from what I'm being seeing in my numbers here, from his particular division, Migurena came in first. Like he had a 4.8 from the backcourt position, and that's very, very good. I mean, again, we can't all compare every backcourter that we know to Manu. So like that's he's up on his own pedestal up there by himself. It's fantastic. 4.8 as far as the backcourt goes is fantastic. That's a really, really good number, and that's very dependable and reliable. From what I saw from Zuleika, um, and from what I understand about the other Division One players, is I feel, and somebody with you guys have more history in this in me, and like about his quality of a player he is. I felt like it was a down year for him. Um, it was out of all of the Division One players, he came in last. Somebody has to come in last, but it was like a marginal drop off compared to the others, and their quality of play kind of consisted year round with minor dips here and there. But his, I don't know, it kind of seemed to me like he had the opportunity to be there at certain times and try to get out some certain wins. A lot of three set losses, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. Uh, I can be double checked on that, but anyway, it just seemed like a down year for him. So I'm kind of hoping and expecting to see a resurgence and see what that could look like, especially with a strong backcourt like Amiga Reyna. Um, Robin, in his sub role last year, was phenomenal. He came in like those pairings with him and Unda were he did a really, really great job. And it went and would stand as well. I think it was. They did very, very well. He came in fourth. If he was to be counted as a part of the division, he would have come in fourth out of his numbers. And give or take one or two opportunities in a few games, maybe with Unda perhaps. It could have been higher than that. He could have been. He could have had really, really excellent quality numbers. So I think having him be a part of the Chargers team is really, really good. Julian, I think, was another fantastic pickup. And well, I mean, Eggy is the biggest, wild card, as it were. I can't speak on him at all. But there's enough there with the others that I'm feeling very strong on them. Yeah, that's the Chargers.
All right, last question here. 3 parts, and it's predictions for season 9. Who's winning it all? Who's your dark horse? Who you think is going to have a drop off? Ethan, I'm going to throw it to you first.
I let off with it at the top. I think the Renegades win it all. I'm willing to put my money on Go Sherry. I think they had a great draft, improved the bottom of the lineup. The Renegades were in 3 consecutive championships prior to missing the playoffs last season. I think they got big upgrades at the back half of the roster. I think there's some more comfortable pairings for Go Sherry this year, as well as Go Inaga. And I think that team's going to elevate come playoff time. I also think this new court should favor Go Inaga's style, which should help out there, kind of raising his floor a little bit. My dark horse, is the Devils a dark horse enough?
Mm-hmm.
I think, like we talked about already, their roster construction is super interesting. Battle court for years, my sort of thesis on this has been front quarters win championships. It's like the exact opposite of like the mantra defense wins championships. Like that's not typically how it happens because the catch rates vary. 1% difference in catch rate is the difference between a Rotz and a Migurena. Like that's a pretty big drop off. That's 1%. So I think the Devils roster construction, I think they have great front court play, and if both of those guys in their second season in battle court now take a step up, they're my dark horse. Who's going to fall off? I will lay
Don't you
off
do it. Don't you do it.
of Clone
Don't do it.
Nation here. The Clone Cartel can stand by for a sec. Um, I think the Fireballs are going to drop off here. I mean, they weren't all that high last year either, but I don't think the back half of their roster got any better. I think the top half, I mean, we'll see. This court may favor Lalu, in which case, I may eat my words on this one. But I'm really skeptical about that back half of the roster. 4, 5, 6, CRB, Kata, Lalu, Stan, and CRB Stan. Like I'm nervous about the back half of that, and then you get into the third division with Urrutia Ikeda, which in my opinion is a fairly steep drop off from Urrutia Cabrera last year, which was actually a pretty solid team. I mean, Cabrera is consistently one of the best catchers on the roster, and you go from a guy, who's above 95% to 94.9 in Ikeda, less of a natural backcourter. I think they're gonna have a tough season, unless that Urrutia can jump to this new level that I think he's capable of, and if this court favors Lalu's style, I think they could make me pay for this, but I'm going with the Fireballs to miss the playoffs this year.
Okay. JR.
Yeah. So what I can give you from, at least, again, remember this is from, well, it's my observation too, but it's also strictly just off of one season's worth of numbers. I wish I had more years and more stuff to know about, particular players to go off of, but it is only just last year's. I've got the top 4 teams ending this season. Top 4 teams ending the season would be Devils, Chargers, Cyclones.
All right. Okay,
Cartel.
good.
And then my last team, it really it might come down to maybe 1 or 2 match days here, but it's somewhere where the Fireballs and the Warriors. Again, that's you have to give me 1 or 2 match days there. So like unfortunately, I don't have, based on the roster construction and who they were able to pick up and stuff. Like I feel like it might be too much for Gaucheri. I feel like it might be too much work for him to have to want to try to do alone. I'm not alone. You get what I'm saying, but like that might be too much to put on his shoulders. Because I won't like legitimately, Gaucheri is like my favorite player. I have a Renegades jersey hanging up in my closet. So like it pains me to say that I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs. Just off of last year's numbers, I know that there's a lot of teams, players can certainly bounce back from their down years from last year or what have you, and can totally dominate. And I would love to be proven wrong about that. I just, what I'm seeing from what I've got is that they're probably not going to make it, and it's a toss up between the Fireballs and the Warriors for that 4th spot.
Okay.
So I guess maybe the Renegades are my dark horse, and I'm picking the Devils to win then. That aligns more with JR's numbers.
I mean, again, it's only one season, so I mean, this only tells you objectively like how they performed. It doesn't go into chemistry or anything like that. Which there's some guys that they vibe together very well, and they can put out a good game as a result. And then maybe the other pairings might be a little lacking, or they haven't figured each other out, kind of thing yet, or at least that's what it seems like on TV. So I mean, like that's what I got is Devils, Chargers, Cyclones, and then I'll take Fireballs for finishing the playoffs, to head on to the playoffs, and then Warriors and Renegades. Just that hurts to say too. That's just but at least preseason, that's what we're talking about.
All right, here's what I got for you. Battle Court is going to see their first ever repeat champion in the Cyclones Clone Cartel. Why? Because we just need one team to step up. We got Iñaki and Manu. We have Hyro and Manu. Those are still 2 of the best teams in Battle Court that we can depend are going to win most of their matches. Give me one more, get us to the playoffs where it's all doubles, and I'm feeling good about our chances. Dark horse, I'm gonna go. Oh, I totally blanked on my dark horse. I had it. I'm gonna go Devils. No, wait, sorry, it wasn't Devils. Chargers. Chargers are my dark horse because I look at that team like Zulaika had a drop off, Iturbide had a drop off. If those guys can return to their caliber and with the changes that they made to their team, that's my dark horse, Chargers. And who's taking a drop off this season for me? I'm gonna go with the Renegades too. There just wasn't enough change for me to that team. I don't think they changed it up as much as they should. That's my three
I like
picks.
this. I like that I picked them to win and you both picked them to miss the playoffs. I love that. Give me all the
I know,
contrarian.
true.
Yeah.
I was fully expecting to be in the minority on that, so I'm quite surprised to be on this other side.
Mm.
When Gaucheri throws 6 philos in a row to win the championship, don't come crying to me.
Hey,
All
I'll be
right.
happy there. I'll be happy, man. Hopefully I'm there.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for breaking down season 9 and talking pelota with me. God bless Jai Alai.
God bless Highlight. Thanks for having us, Nate.
God bless Highlight,
Oh,
man.
look at that. The Jai Alai sweater. Thank you.